Ladies Talk Show. This is your host, Leah Richeimer. We are going through Marriage Secrets. This is the Secret Wives Club, and it's a secret. Okay, so we're going to start with chapter 2. This is very momentous. Wait, we have to do a little seam for chapter 1. We did it. Yay, yay. Okay, so I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs here, and then we're going to take questions. You guys ready? Yeah, everybody ready? Yeah. Everyone's nodding. We can't hear you if you're nodding. Okay, fine. Okay, chapter 2. This is page, what page are we? Oh, it doesn't have a page at the top. So page 35 in Marriage Secrets by Leah Richeimer. That's me. Okay. Okay. Chapter 2, Stolen Treasure. There I was sitting in that well-used chair. My hands were spotted and wrinkled. When had I become so old? My sister sat on the couch as she always had, with one arm on the armrest and the other in her lap. This is a little story, okay? That's how the chapter opens. With her one arm on an armrest and the other in her lap. I spoke with her, but I don't remember exactly what I said. Something about how much I missed Moishi, that my heart was empty. Moishi and I had had our disagreements over the years. I knew I had sometimes spoken more harshly than I should have. How I longed to have him close by, reading a book. And I missed Shayna, her sweet round face, her thin blonde hair. Was she married now? Why wasn't she running around at my feet? And where was Dovey? His bold antics had been the bane of my existence. He could make me angrier than anyone. Where had he gone? I looked to my sister, but she was lost in her own thoughts. She had her own memories to deal with. We drank tea, I think. It was something warm in a mug. Maybe it was hot chocolate. My sister looked up at me, a look of defeat, of sadness. It wasn't supposed to be this way. We had lived rich, full lives. We had meant so much to so many. We had done the right things, been there for our husbands, our kids, even ourselves sometimes. Where had it all slipped away? If I could just have one more chance, I would sit Shayna on my knee and tell her that from now on, I would spend 10 minutes tucking her in every night, listening to whatever she wanted to say. I'd tell Dovey that he was more precious to me than any of the things that I was hopelessly caught up in. And most importantly, I'd tell Moishi that he was the light of my life. I'd tell him I was sorry for being so petty about every last little thing, that I wished I had worked harder to make him happy, that I regret not having been the wife I could have been, and especially that I wish I had put more energy and time into our marriage. Why was I so engrossed in everything else that I forgot to pay more attention to him? Why did I find it so hard to forgive him or to feel close to him? Why didn't I love him with all my heart when I had the chance? He was my best friend, and I never told him. I wanted to reach out to hug my sister, but I couldn't. I couldn't console her, and she couldn't console me. I just longed for one more day. And then something wonderful happened. I heard a child crying from the other room. The sound became progressively louder until I woke from my sleep. It took me a moment to adjust to where I was. I stared blankly at the wall by my bed. Moishi was sound asleep. I could hear Shayna crying and Dovey recklessly pulling toys down from the shelf. I listened to the crash of each toy with a deep sense of gratitude. Whew.
Oh, yeah, heavy stuff. Eye-opening.
Yeah, waking up. What if Hashem allowed you to step back into your life and begin anew? To start fresh, to be the woman that you always hoped you could be? What if you had been granted a pardon for all of your past mistakes and had the ability and courage to create yourself to be a woman who can excel at marriage, who can excel at life? This is what we hope to accomplish here. But there are two stumbling blocks that are in our way. Until they are fully understood and taken into account, they are destined to keep us from our deepest desires and goals. The first one may come as somewhat of a surprise. Okay. We're on page 37, guys. Okay. A century ago, women couldn't even vote. And now women head corporations and countries all over the world. We've come a long way. We have more choices than our mothers or grandmothers ever dreamed of. We've gone from the kitchen to the boardroom and shattered nearly every glass ceiling. It seems that we likely have more choices over our own futures than at any time in the history of the world. And yet, with all of this newfound power, still buried deeply within us, concealed from all eyes, is our eternal nature of longing to be cherished by our husbands. In Bracious, it states, and to woman, he said, and your craving shall be for your husband. Deny it or not, that nagging thirst we all have to be thoroughly cherished and adored by our husbands is an uncomfortable truth that we must somehow hide from the world, hide from our husbands, and most importantly, hide from ourselves. This desire may be buried so deeply within you that in fact that you might not even relate to what I'm saying. That's how effective our culture has been at brainwashing us and stripping us of this weakness. But consider for a moment, everyone in this generation has been bombarded with the message that independence is the quintessential trait. With all the power we've been led to believe accompanies it. The role models extolled in the secular media all show that the true superwoman can do everything on her own, and if she must depend on a man, she is somehow a failure. Even in culturally sheltered homes, we can't escape the prevailing societal attitude that women should strive to have as much control over their lives as possible. In our advanced modern world, it has become politically incorrect to be needy toward our husband. And this affects us deeply, whether we realize it or not. That magnificent feeling of being thoroughly cherished, one of women's greatest treasures, has been systematically removed from our reality. The culture has successfully stripped us of this pleasure, and we've bought into the independence is king philosophy with nary a peep. It's not that independence and being cherished are mutually exclusive. It's just that when the drive to be independent strips us of our capacity to understand that we need to feel cherished, we end up not getting one of our deepest needs met. The point is, we've been robbed and we don't even sense that anything's missing. I certainly don't expect you to suddenly leap forward and concede this point in an instant. All I'm suggesting is to walk through your life and look for evidence that this is so, both personally and all around you. Only by analyzing this issue with eyes wide open will we be able to reclaim our rightful heritage. Only by overcoming this stumbling block and finally recognizing our need to be cherished will we actually have this deep eternal need to be cherished met. Meaning we women deeply need to be cherished, and that has been buried and it's been stolen from us. So let's just talk about woman's need to be cherished. So we'll take questions on
Okay, perfect.
So, and also on the opening story about
correct.
waking up to your life. Okay.
Yeah. So Lynn actually says, I'm afraid now that I'm scared for marriage because of all the work and adjusting that is needed. Any advice for this? Basically, she says, I'm dating someone, but feel nervous about the process in marriage. Like how to know when you're ready. Being a wife is a huge role. Part of me wants to be cherished and in love and feel wanted and needed, but I'm afraid.
I hear. So it's also scary, the first time you had, mint chocolate chip ice cream. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, oh, it's green. Why? What are those little chips in there? Whatever. It's kind of like, and then you eat the mint chocolate chip ice cream. I mean, if you're a mint chocolate chip person, aholic like me, okay, because have people raising their, yay. So it's like there's a nervousness about anything. So that you take that into consideration in what I'm about to say, which is that there is I don't want to know if I call it a fear or an apprehension about growth. It's kind of like anything, you start a new job, anything you start new you're going to have that fear. And then, if you look back on your life, like, I don't know if you went to school, you went to college, you took a program, you took a whatever, that very first time, look in your own life, look at your history and look at things that you did that you were scared of, and you did, and now look where you are and who you are, so that will help you to get over the hurdle. But the other thing is that the greatest satisfaction, we know this isn't Leah Richeimer's great idea, this is, our Masora, this is a 3,000-year-old bulletproof track record of success. We know that the greatest satisfaction and the greatest closeness and the greatest fulfillment of our life takes place in marriage. And it's designed that way, perhaps, but that's how it is. And it's potentially, a woman says, oh, we fight, and whatever. And I'm like, well, do you make up? They did this study of, then I think it was out of Chicago. I'm not so good on memorizing all these things, but it is a study. Somebody could look it up if they so choose. But basically, they did a study of these couples that and they wanted to prove that, they asked the couples, are you happily married or unhappily married? And, they had quizzes about satisfaction in life, success in life, closeness, whatever. So they took 100 people who self-proclaimed them in happy marriage. And they took people in another 100 people who self-proclaimed or did this test, whatever, in unhappy marriages. And then the researchers sent them, everybody out with a clipboard, and they went to all of their houses and they marked down, they had these charts or whatever. The people didn't know but they just went on a Sunday and they spent like 4 hours there ticking off various things. And what they marked down is they had a fight, had a big fight, had a little fight, had, whatever. And they marked down how much they fought. And what the clinicians' theory is that happy couples would have like half the amount of arguments as the unhappy couples, so they could prove how bad arguing is and whatever. And they did this, and it took them about 3 or 4 months to collect all the data. And they came and they started punching it into the computer and typing it in and whatever. Guess what? It turns out that the happy couples and the unhappy couples have the exact number of arguments. So he was like, what is going on? So they sent all the clipboard to all the researchers, there was students and whatever, they sent them all back into the house and had conversations about it. And it turns out that the happy couples have an argument and then come back to harmony and discuss it, or, forget it or something. They come back to harmony. And the unhappy couples have the argument and it ratchets up the tension, and it just gets more and more ratcheted up and more unhappy. What does this lesson tell us? It tells us that we need to be expert at communicate, at coming back to harmony. Believe me, that's the whole, that's where we're going with this. Okay. Ladies talk show, the secret wives, we're going to go through marriage secrets, and you can read it on your own, read ahead, fine, no problem at all. Cause we're going to expound upon it. So have no problem reading ahead and reading it, every night for half an hour or whatever. Get yourself, you want to be an expert in how to run this relationship. It's the most important thing for your happiness. But basically, you want to become an expert in how to get back into harmony. We're going to go over that. Did that answer the question?
It definitely answered it. She's basically afraid because she's dating and she just feels like marriage is so big. How do you know when you're ready? How are you going to get it right? Because there's just so many things that a woman has to do.
Right. So making yourself ready, forget that. If you meet the right guy, just marry him. Don't know, oh, I'm not ready yet or whatever. I think that's a commitment phobe's excuse for not pushing forward with their life, with exceptions. So don't take this and say, oh, Leah said this or whatever. But, we used to work with the single people for decades and whatever. And there's a frozenness that they get at especially people who are very dedicated type A personalities, who keep their commitments, who do what they said. Very, very responsible people are actually have a more difficult time committing to marriage than most people, because other people are just, whatever, whatever, those kind of people, get married much easier, where somebody who takes their responsibilities very seriously, it's a much bigger hurdle to get married. And once they're married, they know they're in, so that's a good thing. But in any case, don't wait till you're ready. Okay. Did that answer all that? Let's go to the next question.
Yes. So Chomi says, especially since he spoke about cherish, and actually I have another question about cherish. Cherish seems to be a word right now that's being focused on. I'm not so familiar with the term cherished. It's not a hashtag that I've seen around. Joke. She's saying treasured, adored, revered, valued, admired. Perhaps cherished is confused for approval today. Women are perceived as weak if we seek approval, which has been misplaced. It's cherished, not approval. Can you explain a little bit about what it means for a woman to be cherished?
That's fantastic. Okay, so you could pull any definition out of the hat, whatever, for the purposes of your understanding this. There is first of all, a woman should see, there's a Gemara that says a woman should, I think I might have even read it in last show, I think, and a woman is looking for approval from her husband, and that's fine. Husband's also looking for approval from his wife. There's nothing wrong with that. Your question about cherished is a deep, deep feeling of that your husband adores you. So I guess you could interchange it with adore or honor or respect. It's kind of a conglomeration of all the emotions that a woman desperately needs. And I use the word cherish because a woman needs respect, but she also needs to be heard and listened to and understood. I would say, I'm not sure, but I think a woman would even value being understood by her husband even more than being respected from him. I mean, not that we have to weigh them out. She needs both or wants both, and different women want different levels of each of those. But I'm saying if a woman really bottom line had to choose between having him respect her and think she's, and put her on a pedestal and treat her a certain way, or if she could choose really being understood what's going on with her. And yeah, I hear how what I said might have hurt your feelings, even though I think you're too sensitive, but I hear it. So a woman being understood is very, very crucial to her own internal sense of, it's kind of validating her, and that's fine. You have to validate yourself. Women are under the culture says you don't need anybody, and you don't need anyone's validation or approval or whatever. We do. That's how we were created. God created us that way. This is not Leah Richeimer's opinion. This is sourced in 3,000-year-old sources, ancient wisdom that you can throw away because that's old fashioned, or you can take it on, realizing your deep need, work towards getting it made, and you'll be happier in your life. So again, don't take my word for it. Try it at home, and the way you try it at home is by not fighting for being right, but fighting to be understood. Not fighting to be understood, communicating to be understood. Okay, next question.
Okay, so back to the cherished. Shira says, in the past, this need to be cherished was more known to women. Question. I thought in the past, most marriages were arranged or centered on what the woman could do for her husband.
It's a good question, although you have to ask yourself one thing, which is 3,000 years ago when Jewish women have been getting a ketubah for 3,000 years, long before the women's rights movement. Okay, women were not chattel. They were not owned by their husband. They had certain rights, and their husband had certain obligations he must fulfill for the wife. So I don't know that looking backwards, and I'm not a historian and I'm not an expert in that field, so I don't know what people felt before. But I do know that God has given us the wisdom to know women need to be cherished. They want to be adored by their husbands, just the way it is. You don't need to get proof of this. You can feel it yourself. And if you can't feel it for yourself, if you are so, independent and so I don't need him and whatever, you might take, do the work and introspection taking out the brick walls, or figure out why you have so many brick walls. Maybe your family of origin, maybe your white mom wasn't respected, or she was a single mom and stood on her own and didn't need anybody and had to build her own fortress around herself to protect herself, or to whatever. So I don't know what your history is, but maybe look inside to see whether your life wouldn't be better if you were able to be vulnerable enough to recognize that you desire to be cherished. And again, our whole culture tells us the opposite. So I'm not mad at you. I'm kind of mad at the culture for raising me in a way that I needed to be independent. And I had to realize I want to be interdependent with my husband, that really is my goal. And in all of the social media and books and, and film and, all the different media that comes into our brain, and no matter how sheltered our lives are, it seeps in, we are fighting a battle for our own ability to be vulnerable and love the way we really deeply need to be loved. So if you are willing to look at that, you might be able to get more love in your life. And we all could use more love. Okay, next question.
Okay. From Chava, how can one successfully find independence in a marriage, but also have this need of being cherished, fulfilled? Can independence exist in a happy marriage? What is codependence? Where's the line between healthy dependence and unhealthy dependence?
Wow. Okay, this is good. Some of this is really above my pay scale. I don't really codependence and all that. Those are really I'm not a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or whatever. If you have those kind of deep questions or questions about your own relationship, and if it does that, go to see somebody or find a book on that topic, because I'm not expert. But I will say that the whole independence and interdependence is very muddled in our society today. Much to our detriment, because we are fighting for independence, and we're fighting for power, and we're fighting for control, because that's, all of our heroes are the people who are put on pedestals are, let's say an athlete who, calls his own shots and does whatever he wants to his face and body, and he's going to be his own person and say what he wants to say and do, whatever, without, and our heroes today are, I don't want to shoot anybody down, and I'm not trying to speak about somebody personally, but I'm just saying the people, the celebrities, the celebritization of the world, like to hold people. I don't know if these people who we're holding as the pinnacle of, ultimate goal that we should all be seeking deserve the respect and the honor that we afford them, or we give to them. So we really need to rethink what is going to not make us the greatest people. That's not our goal, is to be I want to be the best and the greatest and the most famous and the richest and the blah, blah, blah. That's the whole drive of the whole planet, okay? What our goal is to have shalom, to have peace in our home. And if you keep that in mind, if that's like the goal, there are a lot of actions you would do that are different. Instead of, telling your kid that, oh, look at the outfit they have, look at the home they have, look at the whatever, you would say something like, look at that, poor person over here, or that, look at this bus driver. Look how kindly he greets everybody who walks into that bus. Look how nice he is. What a nice man. My goodness. It can't be hard being him. He probably earns less money than he wants. And he has to wake up early and drive people on the bus. And there's there's things to respect about people that just are, that are, it's ridiculous. We respect somebody else, a lot more for lesser kindnesses and qualities. So to answer the question, our drive needs to not be for independence and for power and control, even though that's what the whole society is telling us we should want. Our drive should be towards creating peace in our lives, in our home. And that means, we talked about irritants, and when people are, we're irritating with to learn, like when someone does something that annoys us or things don't go our way, to not let the rage take us over, and to just say, okay, you know what? the fact that they left the milk out, and I don't have cereal now because this person left the milk out, and I told them 10 times, oh, if you're going to take the milk out, you have to put it away. Now I don't get the cereal I want. You have to, instead of being, turning into a monster or getting yourself upset, is to think, you know what? Of all the problems in the world, everyone has to have problems. I'm so happy I have the problem of sour milk. I could have the problem of, God forbid, a sickness. I could have the problem of my car doesn't ever work again and I can't get to work. I could have a lot of problems. Put things in perspective for your own self so that you can work towards peace instead of working towards independence. So the question about independence, yes, a woman can be independent in certain areas. I mean, I'm independent. I buy what groceries I want to buy. My husband might make his suggestions, or he might be going grocery shopping and whatever. But in that sense of independence, yeah. In terms of independence, doing things without my husband, or doing things without his input, I wouldn't buy, go spend a big chunk of money on something without saying, you think this is a good idea? I mean, is that because I'm not independent? No, it's because I'm nice. I try to be, I aspire to be nice, whatever it is. But it's, for a marriage relationship, everyone uses the words interdependent. You're dependent on each other. That's really what I would go for. I would go for peace, and I'd go for interdependence. Independence as a goal is kind of bankrupt. Okay, this is Leah Richeimer for the Ladies Talk Show. Thanks for being with us, everybody. I want you to know that over time, a lot of this stuff will start to make more sense. And as you try stuff at home, it'll strengthen you, and you will, sometimes, it's saying, well, I did this and this, my husband never changed, whatever I hear, it takes time. And also he may not change in the particular thing that you feel is the most crucial, but you'll find that, oh, he's not throwing his clothes on the floor anymore, or he's complimenting me more, or he didn't put me down anymore. Like, keep your eyes open, because as you become a greater receiver, as we learn our Masorah from Har Sinai, we're learning our traditions from 3,000 years. As you start to work your way into them and feel your way into them and take more actions following the guidelines that we have been gratefully given to God, given by God, as you start to try this at home and do the exercises and try things or whatever, you will see, keep your eyes open for other benefits in your life. You won't be able to miss them sooner than later. Hopefully, God willing, you should all be blessed. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Leah Richeimer. What's my name again? It's Leah Richeimer. We'll see you next time. Bye.